If you're still using the default settings on the GoPro Hero 13 for your photos, then you are missing out. Tweaking a few key settings can take your shots from good to stunning. In this video, I'll show you how to unlock the full potential of your GoPro Hero 13 photo capabilities. And you know what? It's pretty damn good. So let's get into it. First step, obviously enough, is being in photo mode. You can do that by pressing the mode button at the side, or you can also just swipe left or right on the screen until you get to photo mode. A couple of icons here that we got to pay attention to first. All of these here are customizable, and we're going to dive into these presets momentarily and show you as well how you can create your own. For example, this one here, this is the interval, right? So you can customize this to whatever you want. If you're going to be using interval shooting a lot, which we'll explain in a bit, then you might have this here. For example, this one I find super useful if you have a timer. So we can have a timer for 3 seconds or 10 seconds. Super useful as well if you want to jump into the photo that you're taking, or indeed if you're doing any night lapse or kind of night-long photography. This is incredibly important, and I'll explain why also in a minute, because we're all about the retention. And then down here, super useful in photo mode, you really have wide or linear lens, so you can use either or, so you can swap between the two. Let's dive into the presets, which is where the real kind of juice is. Tap that and we've got a couple: photo, burst, and night photo, and then you have an option of creating a new preset. Now here, this is the first off that we're going to talk about. This is photo. You don't have so many options in photo, but once you press it, so you can just tap here, and then we have linear or wide. So there is a little bit of a difference between the linear and the wide. You can see this on screen. One basically is a slightly wider shot. So you go and choose whatever one suits you best. Again, not a huge difference, but it might be for some folks. Now on the capture, we have a couple of different options. Super photo is the output, okay? Then we have HDR, we have standard, and we have raw. Now, if you're trying to figure out, going, Vic, what the heck do I actually shoot my photos in? Towards the end of the video, I will give you the ultimate cheat code for each one of these. But they all do different things. RAW will give you the best image quality out of the GoPro Hero 13, but it's going to need a little bit of work because the image is washed out, and you can do all kinds of stuff, including recovering highlights, but it may not be for everybody. Then if we move up, we have the standard, bog standard JPEG files, which are relatively small and they look pretty good. Then we have the HDR files, which uses the HDR processing. So basically it's going to look great for landscapes. It's going to pull in as much as it can from the bright parts of the image and the dark parts of the image. And then if we jump up to super photo, well, you're leaving the GoPro Hero 13 do all of this. GoPro Super Photo is genuinely very, very good. Basically, it's going to do everything automatically when it comes to selecting the best image processing for your shot. I have no idea how to do it, but as I said, it's actually pretty cool. Now, again, you choose you, and if you're still thinking, what do I do? End of the video, we'll explain all. The interval, all right? So how often does your camera take a photo? Maybe you're doing a time lapse manually like this, but there's different time lapse mode in the GoPro Hero 13, which we'll talk about in another video. Subscribe. You can basically get the camera to take a photo every 1 second if you want, every 120 seconds, whatever the case may be. So you can go from 1 to 120. You may never need this, but this is where you dial in what you want. The duration, if you have the interval up, you can set the duration. So you could have it recording for 30 seconds every 3 seconds. You do the math and what that comes out. Then moving on, scheduled capture. You can set a time and a date for the GoPro Hero 13 to turn on, and then it's going to start doing its thing depending on the other settings that you have. Keep in mind, if you're doing something that's going to be a while, you may need to have a little battery bank keeping the GoPro juiced up. Timer, we explained this already at the start, but you can set a time delay, whether that's you getting into the shot in 10 seconds or if it's a nighttime photo, which basically means every time you're going to press the shutter button up here, there is going to be the minutest, tiniest bit of shake, and that may blur your nighttime long exposure photo. So always put a timer on if you're taking photos at night. Zoom, forget this is here. This does not exist. Forget about this. GoPro zoom is a digital zoom. It's not very, very good at all. Now let's move down to ProTune. Now ProTune is where a lot of the kind of secret sauce is, but you can see, okay, Some of these are actually grayed out. And I'll come back to why they are in a sec, but white balance, basically how warm or cool the scene is looking. You can have the GoPro decided by having it on auto. You can dial it in yourself. 2300 would be very, very cool, all the way up to 6500. If you are doing this, then I would always suggest auto in most cases is pretty decent, or you kind of have it at 5500, which is a daylight white balance. That's of course if you are shooting in daylight. Sharpness, look, you can take this for whatever way you want, but there is a significant difference between low sharpness, medium sharpness, and high sharpness. I'm not telling you what to do, but in my view, a very sharpened image does not look great. I would always have it on, for me, have it on low, and that includes video as well, but you do you. And then we have denoise and color. All of these, as I said, are completely grayed out, but we'll get into how we can get access to these in a bit. Dashboard, you can turn this on. So for this preset here, you can have voice commands off. So every time we go into this one, what if we wanted to have them on? And this overrules everything else that's set up in the actual other dashboard settings. Shortcuts, we've explained the shortcuts. These are the ones that were here on the left and right. You can change those to whatever you want. And these, again, all of them completely customizable. And for you, well, you're going to figure out pretty soon which of the GoPro Hero 13 features for photo you're going to use quite a bit. Now, let's go back up here and we can see output is super photo. What if we bring it down to standard? Now let's scroll down and we can get access to all of these. Shutter. GoPros do a good job at auto shutter. You should only really be doing like fast shutter speed for photo if the object is moving very, very fast. Keep in mind you're going to need a lot of light for that. So in a lot of cases, auto can be good enough. EV comp. So what this is basically is how bright or dark the image will be. GoPros tend to overexpose all the time. So I would always suggest, again, if you want it overexposed, by all means, I would always suggest bring it down to either negative 0.5 or negative 1. Pretty kind of sticky to get there, but you will get there. Then the ISO min and max. So GoPros and all cameras have something called ISO. Essentially, it's how bright the sensor is. And once you kind of get up beyond a certain number on GoPros, for me, once you go above 400, you're going to start getting noise in your image. 800 absolute max, okay? Sharpness, as we said earlier on, sharpness, have it low. And then denoise. So if it's a noisy image, the GoPro will denoise it automatically, or you can have medium denoise, or you can get it to do very little denoising. Now, what I would say around all of this is you got to try it out and see how bad or good it is. Personally, I prefer to do these kinds of things in post, as opposed to leaving the camera to decide what's what. But again, you do you. And then color. Natural, flat, and vibrant. There is, as you can see, a bit of a difference between all of them. Depending on how much work that you're actually going to do, then if you're going to be in flat, that gives you loads of scope to kind of correct it and grade it yourself. But if you want something that's natural or vibrant, away you go. Dashboard we covered and our shortcuts we've covered. So that is on the actual differences between the different output modes. So keep that in mind. Again, for something like super photo, which is more or less like a super auto mode, all of these are grayed out. And if you go back to the other ones, then not necessarily the case. Let's go back to our other presets here. Burst. Burst is insanely cool. This thing will take 30 shots in 1 second, or it will do 60 in 10. It's good luck with the timing of it, but it's an incredible feature to have, and it's so much fun to use. So let's just dive into the actual settings here, and we can either go in here and just hit the settings little icon. And again, very similar, linear or wide, standard output, or we can have a raw output. Burst rate, auto. So you can let the GoPro decide, or you can push it up here and do 10 photos in 1 second, or you can go all the way up to 60 in 10 seconds or 60 in 6 seconds. It's insanely good fun. So depending on what you want, I would suggest just do one of these. I think 10 in 1 second is absolutely superb. Schedule capture, we've spoken about that. Timers and all that, we've spoken about that. Now, again, on the EV comp here, bring all of these settings down. The sharpness, always bring it down to low. The denoise, for me, I tend to have it at low as well. But again, you do you. And your ISO, I would push it no more than 800 or 400 in this case. And color is natural. And then we're back to the same settings down here as well, which is all well and good. So that's what the burst mode is. But the real kind of sauce to get the most out of it is the actual burst rate. Next preset is a night photo. Now, this can get you some very nice results. Let's dive into the actual settings here. Again, linear or wide lens output. I tend to suggest that if you're doing night photography, get the best out of the camera, put it on output. Shutter can be auto, but you can get the shutter to expose for 2 or 5 seconds, which could be kind of just about right depending on the kind of shooting scenario that you're in. Schedule capture, you could do that. The timer. Have the timer on for night photography without fail. Otherwise, your photo will be a fail. Pro Tune, so your white balance, I would suggest leaving it on auto, or you can make it quite cool. And again, your ISO max for nighttime, I would go no more than 400. Sharpness, low. Denoise, again, whatever you want. And then we've all these icons. So anytime that we kind of change our preset here, we can go from this one. So we can see it's quite different. Then we can look at the photo one. We've the different icons and shortcuts there. Super useful. Now, that's the basics. But what if you want to create your own preset? Let's say you've got the ultimate photo idea. And you're like, okay, I'm just going to use this all the time. Create a new preset. If it would suggest. There we go. Now, are we creating a photo preset, the burst preset, or are we creating the actual night photo? In this case, let's do a normal photo preset. Which lens do we want? I'm going to go with the linear lens. I'm going to have the output as raw. I'm going to have no interval, no timer. Our shutter is going to stay there. I'm going to bring down our EV comp to -1. Going to leave everything here except the ISO max. Going to bring this down to 400. Sharpness, as we know, down to low. Going to have the color flat. Going to have the denoise. So it's this easy to create your own preset. And I'm going to change my lower left to my output just in case I want to change things around. My lower right is my settings. My upper left is a timer. My upper right is going to be, what do I fancy? I'm just going to have nothing there. Okay. Now I'm going to select the little tick. Now you can give this whatever name you want here, snow, skate, whatever, but I'm going to create a custom name. And you can type in whatever you want within reason. I'm just going to call it night in I. And that's it. So now we have all of these settings set up. So if we go back to the presets here, we've night that we created. We can jump quickly between all of these. But what if you want to get rid of some of these or actually have, you know, some of them reorganized? Well, tap up here and then we can either hide certain ones so they're not going to show up. And then we can start keeping this pressed down. And then we can reorganize things around. So now we're going to have night photo and night. We go back up. And now when we go to our photo presets, as we can see, we've only got 2. And for whatever reason, if you need to change that around, you can just quickly unhide them. Or if we go to this little symbol, we can reset all the photo presets. So whatever reason, if you screw them up or you do something you shouldn't have, boom, reset, and it just resets all of the photo presets. Okay, the big mystery, which mode do you use? Do you use RAW, Super Photo, Standard? What the heck do you use if you're shooting photos in the GoPro Hero 13? Okay, here's what you really need to think about. Where are the photos going? Okay, are they going into like an art book? Chances are they're probably not, but what are you doing? Are you just dumping them onto social? That you don't want to do no work whatsoever. You don't want to grade them. You don't want to correct them. You just want to shoot them, get them onto your phone and bang them up onto Insta or Facebook or wherever. If that's the case, then in my book, Super Photo is the absolute best possible option that you can use. It gets the best of all worlds. It's pretty much auto, as you've seen. That's the one. However, if you want to put a little bit of work, maybe bring in your photos into Lightroom or wherever and do some grading and kind of get them a little bit more dreamy and poppy and snappy and all those other photo buzzwords, then I would suggest you use the raw mode and go from there. But otherwise, Super Photo is pretty damn good. Otherwise, Super Photo is pretty damn good. Something that's also very good, even damn good, is this video here, which is going to take you through all of the video settings that you absolutely need to know about on your GoPro Hero 13.